This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, it is my pleasure to welcome from Footballguys and The Game Day, it's Sam Wagman. I'm happy to have you on here, buddy.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on here. Big fan of the show, obviously, and all the awards and recognition you've gotten over the past year and a half, all very merited.
Hey, I appreciate those kind words. That means a ton. Obviously, you've been doing a ton. Your rise in this industry has been fun to witness. Tell me about your current role with Footballguys and with The Game Day. Everything you're doing right now.
Yeah. So mainly, I'm over at the Game Day. Doing a couple different things over there, but the main thing I do is I manage the NFL content calendar over there, help plan all of the NFL content that we do over there. Then I also run the golf and F1 verticals for TGD as well. And I do a lot of other stuff over there, editing, some social media stuff. I'm one of the guys in charge of the newsletter as well. So wearing a bunch of different hats over there, for my day-to-day job. And then I do a lot of stuff over at Footballguys too, a lot of fantasy football stuff, some to help with the Discord management over there as well. And then kind of just, help out in like a utility role wherever I can, with all the great talent over there.
Nice. Now, how do you like dabbling in other things outside of football? Like you mentioned F1, and obviously that's something that's definitely getting a lot more excitement centered around it lately. What's it like diving into other things outside of football?
Yeah, so I mean, starting with golf, I've been a golfer since I was 11 or 12 years old. It's something I really love to do. I live down in Florida, so my opportunities to golf are pretty much endless. I can go out whenever I want. I tend not to as much during the fall season just because of football, and it gets a little bit more expensive in season. But like during the summer and from like April to August, like I golf 3 or 4 days a week. I absolutely love it. And then that kind of just was a natural lead in to me creating golf content. I do betting content. One of our good friends, Steffi Smalls, I am her co-host for the golf betting podcast that we do on a weekly basis over on her YouTube channel. And then I just love creating golf content, all across the ways that I can create it, both from, a storyline capability and then as a betting capability as well. And then F1 is a real new hobby for me. One of my good friends, Jordan Fiegelman, really kind of got me into it, as well as another friend that I have outside of the industry. She helped get me into it as well. And over the last year, I've been, learning as much as I can about it, and, really kind of helped, jumpstart with my good buddy, Jeff Hicks over at TGD, the F1 content calendar over there. So I really love, any ways that I can kind of take a break from football sometimes out of the year. It's nice to do it. I love football so much, but it is nice to like take, a few month sabbatical away once the season ends and kind of just get caught up on like the golf and the F1 circuits. And, since golf and F1 kind of like hang out in like that February to October range, and then football is the other 6 months of the year, it's perfect because it gives me, time to completely focus on football, when I need to focus on football. And then I also get to focus on, hobbies like golf and F1 when football is not in season, and it's a little bit more of a downtime where I can focus on them as well too.
Nice. It sounds like a good balance. And obviously, if you're going to cover golf, you might as well golf a bunch too. I like that. 3 days a week. That's living the life down there in Florida. Now, you were not originally from Florida. Talk to me about your background. Where the passion for sports developed in growing up with sports involved.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I was only born there. I never lived in Philadelphia. My parents and pretty much my entire family is from Philadelphia and like downtown Philly and like those areas. So I was like exposed to Philly as a kid, but I never lived there. Shortly before I was born, my parents moved us to the suburbs of Philadelphia, about 20 minutes over the bridge in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So I grew up in South Jersey. Was exposed to sports from an early age. I learned to skate on roller skates when I was 3 years old. I was playing roller hockey by the time I was 5. I played a bunch of other sports as a kid. I played t-ball and I played soccer. Nothing really stuck until besides hockey, until I picked up tennis. When I was 9 years old, and really got to playing tennis like at a very high competitive level. Won a state championship in high school, and played in college a little bit as well. So that's one of the things that I've stuck with. But I've always been involved in sports ever since I was a little kid. I really do love them. And then with football, it kind of was natural for me to like the Eagles because my dad and his brother were huge Eagles fans. We would, they would take me to games when I was a kid. And then, as I started to learn the game and, really kind of got into it by the time I was like 10 or 11, I watched the '04 Super Bowl with the Eagles against the Patriots. Didn't really understand what was going on. As my dad has told me over the years, though, I like to think I remember Donovan McNabb puking on the sideline. I don't. So I didn't really experience the Eagles in that part, but ever since like about like '05, '06, when I was 10 or 11, kind of just old enough to kind of understand some of the basic nuances of the game, that's when I've been a football diehard fan ever since.
What was it like growing up as an Eagles fan in Jersey?
It's pretty normal. I didn't get to go to as many games as I wanted to just because we didn't want to drive into the city that much. And my dad was plenty happy to always watch the games on the weekend, and I always watched the games on the weekend. That's kind of translated to my adult life as well. I'm not a huge fan of going in person to games unless it's like in a really important game. I'm perfectly happy to just sit on the couch and watch games there, not be out in the sun as much. Though I do still enjoy tailgating, but it's not as important to me. Just being a fan and watching the games, as many games as I possibly can on TV, and however else I can get them is what's important to me about that.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, to me too, I love the TV experience, right? The bathroom lines are shorter. Food, you can get whatever food
Food's
you want. Food's better. It doesn't take all day, and just the commentary. I grew up consuming so much football that I just was so used to when I go to games, which I do, periodically. It's just it's a different experience, and like I kind of lean that direction too. I mean, that might be kind of strange, but obviously you agree, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to experience football in, whatever way you want to. I think some people really do love that like in-person experience of like going to a game. And honestly, I do kind of wish I went to more games as a kid because, obviously the Eagles are one of the more rowdy fan bases out there. We've obviously had a little bit of a checkered history in the fan department there, but
Yeah.
it kind of would be interesting to be like one of those like really diehard, fans that goes to like all the tailgates and everything like that. And I think if I lived up in Jersey and Philly more, I think that is probably the direction I would like to go. I definitely think me thinking this way is a byproduct of me having lived in Florida for 20 years since I was 10 years old. And I've never really been able to go and have that in-game experience. Sometimes I go when they play the Dolphins, or I'll travel up to Tampa to watch them play the Buccaneers. I think I'm going to go drive to Jacksonville this year when they play the Jaguars and try and catch that game in person. But
Nice.
other than that, I haven't really gotten a chance to be an in-person spectator that much. And, outside of me catching a plane ticket, which, if I'm being honest, is a little bit of an inconvenience given the fact that I work full time in the industry. I can't exactly just jet up to Philly for a weekend to go watch a game, even though I would absolutely love to do that. So I think that's definitely played like a big role on like my viewpoint of how I want to watch football.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, growing up, who were your favorite players, athletes, any sport?
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of the Eagles, Brian Dawkins has long been my first or second Eagles player. It honestly depends on the day. I think these days I would more lean towards Jason Kelsey being my favorite Eagles player, just given not even just like recent history withstanding, given the speech he gave at the Super Bowl parade and obviously the retirement speech that had pretty much every Eagles fan in tears earlier this week. But I do think Brian Dawkins has to be one of my favorite players of all time, just given the physicality and given, everything we saw from him when we were growing up. And then honestly, I've always loved Chad Ochocinco. Has been, one of my favorite players since I was a teenager. I've gotten to meet him a few times, through work and other things. And then other than that, I'm not really sure I have another favorite player besides that on the gridiron. I think those two would probably be my choices.
How about, were you a big basketball fan? Were you like an Allen Iverson fan?
I was when I was younger. I've never paid as much attention to basketball as I have the other sports. I actually am not a huge fan of the NBA. In its current iteration, I think the products definitely lagged behind a little bit. I was an Iverson fan. I definitely had an Iverson jersey when I was a kid. I had, a couple Flyers jerseys as well when I was a kid. But far and away, my two sports that I have paid attention to since I was a kid have been football and baseball. I was a big Phillies fan for years. I'm really starting to get back into the Phillies now. I was obviously a huge Jim Thome fan when he was here. I'm a big Bryce Harper fan now. A couple other guys as well at this point. But football and baseball were always my like Philly like homesteads that I was really into. And then I stopped paying attention to baseball for years because the Phillies were just depressing. They either just wouldn't make the playoffs at all, or if they did, they would lose in some heartbreaking way that had me like just ready to swear off baseball for another 12 months until, the playoffs came around again. So I definitely was a fair weather fan until very, very recently, but picking it up, starting to follow them again.
Well, as a Seattle guy, I mean, I can relate to that. Obviously, the Mariners have been pretty much abysmal my entire life. Couple little windows where they kind of made a run, but about as bad as it gets when it comes to baseball. So I can relate to those down times, losing a little hope. But hopefully with with what we got right now, we can actually bring some more love in the Seattle area for baseball. It's just one of those times where we need it. We need baseball success in Seattle. So it's fun.
Do you wish that the NBA would bring the Supersonics back? I know they're like thinking about another expansion team. Would you like that as a fan?
Oh yeah, I think that the NBA has been garbage for the last 15 years or so because the Sonics left. Like that's my bias. I mean, I think the Sonics are a phenomenal franchise. Tons of support in this community. It's been really really bad with them gone. It's going to be phenomenal when they return, and I assume that they'll probably announce that hopefully this year. So excited for a Sonics return. It'll probably bring back a lot of love for the NBA around here, which has been pretty dormant since then because a lot of bitter fans.
Yeah, for sure. But it's got to have been nice to have like Seattle back as the Kraken for the last couple of years in the NHL as well. I know you're a Kraken fan. I've seen you with some Kraken gear. Definitely nice to see some of those expansion teams making some waves there.
Yeah, they've had a huge impact on the community. Especially, it's interesting in an area that doesn't have a hockey history. When it comes to like youth, playing, it's not a hockey town per se,
right?
But it's been fun, and it's definitely got a lot of support, and people are excited about the Kraken. Which we will take anything. We want the Sonics. We'll take the Kraken. It's been fun.
Love it.
But the Sonics will come. Full circle, we'll finally have a full calendar of sports around here again one day. So speaking of sports, what was your biggest loss? Like the biggest experience, your experience is the biggest loss as a fan.
I could go through, a few of the Super Bowls that we've lost, as Eagles fans recently. Obviously, last year was really tough. But if I have to go like actually back, it's one of the first like bad losses I've ever witnessed, and it was us losing to the Arizona Cardinals in the 2008 NFC Championship game. And it was a year that we absolutely thought we could win the Super Bowl. One of the last truly good Donovan McNabb years before we got rid of him, and it was right there for the taking. I remember I was in the airport for some reason. I remember watching the game, with my dad at a restaurant there. I can't remember why we were there, but just it was very, very depressing to watch the Eagles just go flat in that game, not have a chance. And I really do think they would have beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl had we gotten a chance. I think the Eagles were better than the Cardinals that year, but Cardinals just got it there. Larry Fitzgerald had a terrific game, absolutely beat up on our secondary that game. And that is honestly the worst loss that I can remember as a sports fan. I'm really not sure if the Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs last year compares to it, just because of how sure I was that the Eagles were going to win that football game going in, and just watching them just look really, really flat. While we're doing it, the comparison is that you never have a lot of hope against Patrick Mahomes. He's just so good, and I was just psyched that the Eagles were there last year. Obviously, Jalen's first really true MVP level year as a starter, and everything went right for the Eagles until the defense just gave out. So I was never quite sure that game. Obviously, I thought we were going to win it at halftime, but just doesn't feel the same as going into that NFC Championship game, thinking that we had the best team in the NFC for sure, and just come out looking so flat, not even getting a chance to win.
Yeah, I know. I can see that. Like, I think that, in the Super Bowl, everything's on the line. You're either winning or you lose, and the game's going to end. You know it's going to end. But when you lose prematurely like that in the playoffs, where you expect to, or just you don't even in your mind think that it could be over, and it just suddenly ends. That's hard to digest. So I can see that. What's your favorite all time sports moment?
Well, on the other end, getting the Super Bowl win in 2017 after everything that happened is a no-brainer win for us. Everything that happened with Wentz, nobody really feeling like it was possible anymore, despite us having the best team in the NFC that year. I do think Nick Foles coming in, everything that happened, the Super Bowl, the Philly special, everything there was just so special, and it just all came together in like a perfect moment. The parade was absolutely perfect, and somehow it did eclipse the 2008 World Series win for the Phillies, and that I also remember was just perfect because obviously the game against the Cardinals was earlier that year. Was a tough loss, and then to come back about 9 months later and the Phillies to just dominate and win the World Series there, just going away, like absolutely perfect scenario as well. But the Super Bowl absolutely tops that because it had been so long since the Eagles had anything to celebrate, and was really the start of us, being an NFC powerhouse again, because it had been a while since we were a true NFC powerhouse.
Yeah, and against Tom Brady with Nick Foles, I mean, such an incredible Super Bowl. So I can see why that's your answer. When did you discover fantasy sports?
So I went to tennis camp when I moved down here, and I met a kid named Sasha Yudashkin. He actually has done some work for RotoWire over the past, and I actually just figured that out in the last year and a half. I hadn't known that because I hadn't spoke to him in nearly 10 years. But when we were 11 or 12, we were both in like a summer tennis camp. And one day it was getting close to the season. It was probably like August. He asked me, he's like, one of the guys in this fantasy football league that I do with a bunch of friends from New York, because his family vacation down here in the summer. He was from New York. And he's like, I need one more to play fantasy football. Have you ever played before? I'm like, no, never played. But I got into it. Wasn't really sure what I was doing. Still had a very rudimentary knowledge of football at that point, especially outside of the Eagles. I barely knew who anybody was outside of Philadelphia, but kind of just bits and pieces of it together. And it was honestly one of the great experiences, of my young teenage life there, playing this game that would eventually come to become one of the core things that I pursued as I became an adult and really grew to love. But yeah, that was my first experience to fantasy sports. Honestly, had no idea what I was doing. Won the league that summer, and honestly, just never looked back.
I love it. Do you remember whose content you consumed back in the day before you discovered a desire to get involved in the industry?
Yeah, so I mean, this is going to be a really boring answer. I wasn't really a huge consumer of content before I got into this industry. I actually had no idea that anybody outside of like ESPN and CBS and NFL Network, I had no idea that anyone created content outside of those guys. So for years, I thought the only way to get into the football industry was to go from local affiliate to local affiliate, like doing broadcast journalism spots. And I had no idea you could start up a fantasy football website from the ground up and just write your own stuff. I had no idea that you could do this as like a little freelance gig from time to time. So getting into this industry in 2020, that was all new to me. I had no idea that any of this existed. No idea fantasy football Twitter existed. It was like a bolt from the blue. It hit me back then. So I was really just, a consumer of the main guys, Matthew Berry and, the guys on NFL Fantasy, Adam Rank, CBS, the FF Today guys. Like those were the guys that I knew about. And other than that, I didn't really know who anybody else was. And I have to think I definitely was leaving some wins out there on the field, not knowing, about the plethora of incredibly sophisticated talent that some of the people in this community possess, because just absolutely missing out there.
I love it. So when it comes to playing the game, what do you love the most about the fantasy experience?
Well, I think there's, definitely a bunch of different things that, you can love about fantasy football. I have to think the camaraderie of being able to play against people that in a league, that is entirely based on a fake scoring game, I think is absolutely hilarious. I think that's probably the best part about fantasy football is you get to hang out with a bunch of people and keep in touch with them. Even if you guys aren't in the same time zone or anything like that anymore. So that's always nice. Um, just getting to experience different ways to build teams and build lineups, trying new things that you haven't before. I love all of that. But just, playing the game, hanging out with people, the connections that you get to make is cliche, but it is obviously, the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's cliche because it's the most common thing because it's what brings people to this game, right? The league experience, competition, having a good time with friends, colleagues, enemies. In a fantasy league, it's why it's special to me, at least.
Absolutely.
So I can relate. Do you have a primary home league, like one league that you consider like your main league?
I do. I started it up among all of my friends that I grew up with down here in Florida. I started up in 2018 was the first season we did it. We've done it every year since. There's 10 of us in there. There's a few of us that are now out of state, so not everyone gets to make the home draft. And it's a very basic home draft. Like it's not like a board or anything. We all draft on laptops, and we go to my buddy's house, and he's got a little bit of a bigger house, so we all spread out in there, and everyone picks a room and just does their own thing, and then we all get together and talk crap about each other's teams afterwards. But yeah, that's a group full of all of my best friends that I've grown up with since moving down here, and it's honestly a great time. And I've come close to winning it a a couple times, and I've never gotten close to winning it once I get to the playoffs.
The playoffs in fantasy, it's a wild card. Like, who knows, right? That's funny that you guys get together, separate within the house, have your own little war rooms, and then celebrate the league afterwards. That's great. What's your most memorable experience playing in a league, like a home league type of experience?
Honestly, I don't know if I have like an actual story of this. It's just, the experiences of, being able to hang out with all of your, close friends and, talk trash to each other is definitely the best part of being in a home league. It's kind of just, it's not much more complicated than that for me. Is just the experience of, playing with people that I always enjoy that part of it.
I love it. Now, obviously, leagues can be fun. I not that you've implemented a last place punishment, but is there a last place punishment out there that you love, or an idea that you'd love to implement someday, or just one that you think is wild?
I continue to try to implement a last place punishment into our home league, and every year I get shot down or people just don't answer because nobody wants to commit to it. I think it
Sure.
would be better if we did have a last place punishment that people could, complain over, but then get humiliated over because I think my love language has always been making fun of people. That's the way I show, my appreciation and, how the judge of how friendly I am with you is how much I insult you.
I love
So,
it.
I mean, I speak in fluent sarcasm, so a lot of it stems from that, and kind of just the way that I have gone my life is not only being kind to people, but all and how much I'm willing to do for you, but also how much I'm willing to roast and insult you because that's just kind of the kind of person I am. But yeah, I will say, like, in terms of last place punishments, the Waffle House challenge will always be one of my like favorite punishments just because of how ridiculous it is that the only way that you can take time off is to eat more waffles. Especially from like a place like Waffle House where they do get on the larger side. So that's always interesting. But if you live in a metropolitan area like a Chicago or like a New York, and seeing things that they've done like on the league where they had like Andre go out in like public and put him in a wig and made him grow like facial hair out and like do like flute solos on at like a bus stop and stuff like that. I always think public humiliation stuff like that is kind of hilarious as well, but you have to have people that are willing to do that. So that if I lived in like a city type area, that would be something I would love to implement.
I love that. No, that's true too. Um, Public displays of shame. I mean, that hits it every time. So always recommend doing that. But the Waffle House, I mean,
Absolutely.
that's just such a perfect one. I know why that's a popular answer for sure. Now, when it comes to fantasy, do you have preferred settings, formats that you love to play?
Yeah, I've definitely always been a basic one QB, half PPR, full PPR type of guy. Not too crazy with all the settings. Definitely gotten my share of like intriguing league setups over the past couple of years in the space. A lot of my friends are very partial to like just the basic, one quarterback, two running back, two wide receiver, one tight end, one flex. I've been trying to get them to add it took 4 years for me to implement free agent auction bidding into our league, and it took me the last couple of years to get them to add an extra flex to the league. The next thing is to get rid of team defenses because I think they offer absolutely nothing, and then hopefully kickers will be on the way because kickers are not human people and don't deserve rights. So at least not in the fantasy world, they don't deserve rights. So I will say that those are my objectives for the next couple of years of this home league. But me myself, I do kind of like the basics to a certain degree, and I like to add some spice to the league just to make it a little bit more difficult, but nothing too crazy. Like I do like a tight end premium, but I don't need it. I definitely don't need super flex unless it's like a dynasty format where that like makes a little bit more sense. And then, some of the other things like points per carry and points per first down are things I'm still kind of getting used to and still kind of learning the game theory around. So, it's all a never ending study kind of for me as well to, get used to those settings. But yeah, I do kind of am partial to the basics.
Nice, nice. And obviously you are involved in some dynasty. You and I are in a dynasty startup right now.
Yes,
Um
we are.
it's been interesting.
It's
I
hectic.
I am we're in a league with a bunch of ringers, right? So for whatever reason, I kind of got down this path where I am just basically drafted all rookies. I'm going with
Yeah.
the youth movement. I'm starting to rebuild from day one. Uh, you have your own method. Talk to me about what your experience is thus far in that league.
Yeah, so I actually, when I build dynasty startups, I like to tend towards contending right away. And I eschewed that completely with this league, and I decided to do something a little outside of my comfort zone and try to build a little bit of a younger team. And it's worked out pretty well. It's worked out pretty well thus far. I've made a few trades. Some of them I'm not entirely proud of. Some of them I do think I got some value on. But outside of me taking Austin Eckler with my most recent pick because Dave sniped Blake Corum from me earlier in the round, my team is pretty young. I don't think I have a guy that's over the age of 27 except for Eckler on my team, and I still have all my future picks. Though, if anybody is listening to this and would like to trade me future picks, my startup round picks are on the block, all of them, because I am now finished with the starting lineup, and I will be taking plenty of future picks if I can get them. So, whenever this episode airs, if anybody wants to make a trade, feel free to come at me. But I will say that this league has definitely been a little bit eye-opening. Like you said, there's a bunch of really, really talented guys in there. We got a few of our football guys, colleagues in there. Dave Kluge, Alfredo Brown, Jagger Mayer in there. Got guys like Ian Hartitz in there. Tyler Fuller over at NFL put this all together for us. But yeah, it's a great league in there. I'm really interested to see how it shakes out, especially, year one. You and I got a couple young teams, so hopefully we can compete right away, kind of out of the gate and put the fear of God into some of these guys who are building a little bit more contender heavy build there.
Yeah, I'm playing for like 2-3 years out, so I'll let you know how it all turns out because I went the direction I'm not used to going in a startup dynasty, but I'm sticking with it now. I'm angry that I did not let Caleb Williams slip to you because he fits on my team. Like it just fits perfectly. So we'll see how it all turns out. I'm excited.
I was excited to get Caleb Williams. Both Dave and Marco have been bugging me, or well, not Dave as much, but Marco has definitely been bugging me to get Caleb Williams. For at least the last week. So I will not give him to him. I will not give up Caleb Williams. I went into this year thinking I needed at least one share of Caleb Williams if I could get him, and I don't think I have any other 101s in dynasty rookie drafts. So I'm very happy to have Caleb here.
We'll see how it all plays out. Not that anyone else cares, but for us, like it matters. So we'll see how it goes. So for you, for starting creating content in fantasy, obviously part of the COVID content creation era, right? What inspired you to get involved?
So I was running a sales agency business from 2018 to 2020. And, kind of struggling a little bit with it, especially heading into COVID. COVID kind of put like the huge brakes onto my business because a lot of it consists on things shipping from overseas. And, with COVID slowing everything down, China is a huge import-export area and things were just tough to get going there. So my business was really suffering and I was looking kind of, for a hobby, something to do, in the downtime. And I got myself into writing Philadelphia sports articles for a few sites. I started with the Eagles writing for this site and podcast called Fourth and John, some of whom are still very close friends today with me. And, got started writing with them, and then was writing with a fan-cited site called Section 215. And then, kind of just from there, decided I wanted to write about fantasy football because I had discovered, to my astonishment, that you could write about fantasy football without being a part of these major media networks. So that was really news to me. So, I was writing for our good friends over 14 Personnel, Justin Wright and Marco Enriquez over there, and was just writing as a hobby. Nobody was paying me, and, nobody was doing anything. I was just happy to kind of just write about fantasy football, and it was definitely a hobby, and I had no idea that it could lead to a career at any point. But I got my reps in, and I moved to another site, Ball Blast Football, after 5 or 6 months there. And then after that site folded, I went over to Rotoballer in 2022. And then I got stints at Footballguys and Fantasy Points in May of 2022. And that's kind of where everything took off for me, in terms of my spot in this industry, being able to make connections with all of the legends that are over at Footballguys, Joe Bryan and Sigmund Bloom. And obviously Dave and Jeff Bell were just starting over there as well. And then, several months later, Alfredo would join. So, it was a lot of guys that I came up with in the industry when I was just starting in early 2021, helped me to get there. And then obviously all the work I did at Fantasy Points with a bunch of legends over there, like Joe Dolan and Graham Barfield and John Hansen. And then I also helped on their PGA product as well. So got a lot of experience there, and it kind of just geared me into having the confidence to chase a full-time job in this industry, which, to that point, everyone had said, this is extremely difficult to get a full-time job in this business. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. But, I managed to get a contract full-time job with a company called Vegas Insider, working as a junior content manager for them, kind of helping a little bit design their written and media content strategy, and then kind of just doing a little bit more back-end editorial and editing work for them there. And then that kind of led me to work at the Game Day this past April. And that experience has been one of the great experiences of my career, being able to, parlay 3 years of freelance work into a full-time job in the sports media industry, which I never thought possible, to get a part-time job, let alone a full-time job, and allow me to leave my sales agency behind, was absolutely surreal. And I'm so thankful for, all the people that I've been able to come up with, and, that have given me advice and helped mentor me in this, space here. And it's absolutely a dream to be able to do what I love and, talk about sports for a living.
That's fantastic. What's been the biggest challenge that you've faced along this journey?
I mean, it's definitely a few. I mean, it feels like every time one thing gets stamped down, another thing pops up. But I would definitely, for sure, say battling imposter syndrome, kind of feeling like I do belong in this space alongside all of these talented individuals that are here, is definitely one of the biggest things that I've had to struggle over being. And it's, I wouldn't exactly say that I'm done with that either. It's definitely, a consistent battle. This is an industry where there are plethoras of talented people that, even if they're not discovered yet, they will be as soon. And, not that I'm looking over my shoulder, but, knowing that, there's always going to be talented people in the sports content creation and, just obviously the back end of sports as well. Thinking and understanding that not only do I not have to be the most talented person in the room, but I just have to be good at what I know I'm good at, and, continue to provide value to, consumers and the company I'm with, and, the people that are reading my content, and the content that I help plan and design over at the Game Day. That's what's become the most important thing to me.
Yeah, you're right. There are a ton of talented people in this space. A lot of great people too. Let's talk a little bit about the community, fantasy sports community. We've met so many incredible people over the years. What have the friendships you've made, the relationships you've built meant to you over the years?
I mean, they mean absolutely everything to me. I've met a few people in this space that have become lifelong friends for me. People that I plan to go to their weddings, eventually, and people that I've met in real life a handful of times. Real friendships that have kind of persisted to where I live in Florida, that I've met up with people in person. Obviously, everything that happens at the expo. I mean, the friendships that I've made in this industry mean a ton to me. They're one of the main reasons that I love this industry as much as I do. I consider myself a very emotional person. I like to, kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve a little bit. And, if you've done something for me, I'm very happy to tell you, like, I appreciate like everything you've been able to do for me. And, just the friendships that I've been able to make are they like I said, they and keep saying somehow they do mean everything to me.
How about your experience at the expo? What's that been like going to Canton?
It's been absolutely terrific. I went to my first expo in 2021. I've been at each of the last two since. I'm really looking forward to the 2024 expo as well. It's a good reminder for me to actually book my tickets and book the rooms and airfare and everything. But yeah, just there's more people there each and every year. Getting to meet all the new people is great. Like getting and even seeing people that don't create content there is awesome, because 2 years ago when we all went for the first time, it was really just content creators and people in the industry showing up. And then over the last couple of years, people have felt more comfortable showing up if they're just fans and they want to go see like their favorite podcaster or their favorite company show up. And it's been really cool, especially like at the expo level of things, on the Sunday that, everyone's at their booths and, you're walking around and you see people who are, obviously fans, just going up and, just saying they appreciate you to, their favorite content, creation website, or, just kind of meeting their heroes in a sense, is really cool to see. And I'm really grateful to Bob Lung for everything he's done with that event, and obviously just expanding it to all of the the activities that get through there. And obviously being able to meet all of my friends and see all of them, hang out with them there as well, it's just one of the best things. And it is also nice to get out of Florida where everything is really overpriced and go to Canton where I can buy a beer for $2 at George's, because that is just not something that I get to experience down here. My wallet is very thankful when I go to Canton, because even though I definitely have a blast of a time, doesn't feel like I've spent a whole lot of money either.
Yeah, no, that's great. Everything about the expo is great. Bob has crushed
Absolutely.
it when it comes to what he's built. Can't wait to go. It's a staple every single year. So highly recommend, if you haven't been to the Fantasy Football Expo, to make sure that 2024 is the year you start going, because once you start going, you're probably not going to stop. It's that fun. It's that fun. As for the 24 season, we're fresh off the combine. We got the draft ahead of us. We got free agency coming here. Any free agency hot predictions you have right now? Any landing spots that you're excited? I mean, I'm hearing a little Saquon, maybe Philadelphia. Talk to me about the free agency right now.
I did hear that. I will say that I don't have like anything, truly groundbreaking in terms of predictions quite yet. I'm actually sitting down after this podcast gets finished recording to work on my free agency articles for TGD. But I will say I've definitely heard the Saquon news of the Eagles. I don't see it happening. That's not Howie Roseman's style to pay a running back, $15+ million, which is, surely what Saquon's going to command, somewhere in that 12 to 15 range, per year. I just don't see that, even though the Eagles are in a spot where they could convince themselves of being like in a spot to go all in. I do think we either bring DeAndre Swift back or build again through the draft. I would love to see a guy like Blake Corum come to Philadelphia and get paired with a pass catching running back. Honestly, you could just shift Kenny Gainwell into that pass catching role again, and I think it would be just fine to have him and Corum there. But I actually do think Saquon's going to end up on the Texans. He said it's been his top choice there for free agency is to go to the Texans. I think that would make Houston a really, really intriguing AFC contender. I think it would make them the AFC South favorites right away. And definitely would be really interesting to see what they're able to get up to, if Saquon's able to sign there.
Any prospects coming out in the draft coming up that you're really excited about seeing in the NFL?
Oh yeah, a ton of them. I mean, obviously, this is one of the another really really talented wide receiver class. There, you got 3 guys who are almost guaranteed to be picked in the top 10 picks between Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Roma Dunze. A couple other back end of the first guys, and Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, possibly A.D. Mitchell. So, it's going to be really interesting to see there. And then I'm really interested to see what this running back class is able to do, because I think, whenever we don't have like a top running back prospect, we get a little bit shell shocked, and we try to put guys with round puzzle pieces into square holes. So I'm not really sure exactly when we're going to see a running back off the board in May. But I do think that we're going to see plenty of fantasy relevant options here. I think this is, a class that has a decent amount of running back depth, just no guys that are like top tier, top shelf echelon guys. But I do think there's a handful of really talented guys there. Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, once he gets, clear off the ACL, obviously Corum, like I talked about. Braylon Allen. I think these are all guys that could easily hold starting roles, and especially with the NFL's recent stance towards running backs, I think these guys will get starting roles quicker than people think.
Yeah, the landing spot is key, right? Some of these guys might not be as touted as like a Bijan, but if they find the right spot, it's gonna be a good spot for them for sure. Any other deep sleepers you have in this class?
Yeah, I really want to focus on a couple of the deeper wide receiver prospects, guys like Johnny Wilson, who I think is possibly one of the most talented wide receiver prospects in this class. People thought he could line up as a tight end because he's 6'7". He's just an absolute behemoth of a wide receiver. But then he ran a borderline 4.6 in the 40 and tested really well. So I think he's a guy that could be a really, really big big slot kind of option, maybe a guy who just plays like a pure X receiver role on the outside. So I'm really interested to see a guy like Johnny Wilson. And then I'm also interested to see what happens with Audric Estime, because his thoughts were all over the place. People thought that he would be one of the top running backs in this class, and then he goes to the combine, runs a 4.72 40. So something we kind of saw with Kyron Williams a few years ago, another Notre Dame running back, shocker. But I'm really interested to see what the NFL does with the Estime, because I think he's really good. He's 230 pounds almost. Obviously could contribute to him running a little bit of a slower 30. So I'm really interested to see there. And then obviously, lastly, the other 2 Washington wide receivers, Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, both guys who I think are really good route runners that have gone a little bit underlooked in this draft process. Ran, decently well at the combine, tested decently well. I actually think McMillan's going to be a really, really solid player. He's a very, very solid route runner, and gets open quite a lot. Obviously, some of that has to be attributed to Michael Penix and his talent and what he's able to do. But I do think McMillan's going to be a really good NFL wide receiver.
Yeah, they're all good players there. I mean, I got to see them just down the road. So all talented, super talented. I can't wait to see where they land. With redraft season, months and months ahead, it's a little bit early, but is there any players out there that you're just really excited to jump ADP and snatch in the next season?
Yeah, it's a little tough for me to determine right now, as we're still in March with this, and there's so much that can change there. I do think guys like some of the running backs are a little bit undervalued right now. And we see this all the time, right? Running backs, especially the ones on the older side, get a little pushed down because dynasty season, we see a lot of these guys fall by the wayside because they're a little bit older. But as running back rooms and skill position rooms tend to kind of shake out and everything takes form over the summer as things go along, you get a lot clearer picture of where guys go. And a lot of times these guys just stick in their same roles from last year. So, you got a guy like Austin Eckler who just went in the 10th round of our dynasty startup. And obviously he's 28 and looked like he lost a step last year, but he had a high ankle sprain and that had to have affected him most of the 2023 season. So, if a guy like that, who, I've seen in best ball drafts going in like the 4th or 5th round, have to think he's going in like the 2nd or 3rd round by the time that August rolls around, because this is a guy who was the RB3 last year. And guys like that, I'm always looking to grab in these best ball drafts early that I do in March and April, and even sometimes before. I'm always looking to grab these running backs. I'm happy to grab them a little bit early because I know by the time that August rolls around, they're already going to have jumped a couple, a round, maybe 2 rounds. And I'm just ahead of the game, and I'm not risking, losing them at that point.
I love it. I love it. Hey, let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out some questions. You just let me know first things that come to mind.
Yeah.
What do you love most about what you're doing in the industry right now?
Well, besides the fact that I get paid full time to talk about it, my favorite thing about what I'm doing in the industry is being able to just talk sports every single day. Sports are a massive part of my life, whether I play them, I watch them. I would say at least 85% of my life is sports driven. So being able to do this, as a job in the industry is a life-changing moment for me.
I love it. Name one person that you'd love to watch a football game with just to see their perspective on it.
Ooh, Seth Rogen. And this popped into my head because, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of like I've ever like watched a Seth Rogen like interview or anything like that where he's like said like what sports he likes to do. But I feel like Seth Rogen would be one of the funniest people to watch a football game with because he'll have some like really outlandish takes on like rules and stuff like that.
That's a good one. What are your favorite hobbies, activities outside of sports? I know we talked a little bit about golf and whatnot, but
Yeah, so obviously golf for me is one of them. Another one that I've gotten really into over the last year is pickleball. Somewhere out there, Pete Overzet just screamed at the wall when, he heard that through the grapevine because Pete loves pickleball. But yeah, pickleball is one of my favorite things to do right now. Actually have a tournament this weekend that I've been training for and grinding for. So really looking forward to getting really deep into that this summer as well.
phenomenal sport, and with your background in tennis, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
What's the last TV show that you binged?
The last TV show I binged was Prison Break. Watched it for the first time. And honestly, I didn't get to finish it because the people that watched Prison Break told me you'll love the first season. It's one of the best seasons of television history. You'll like the second season. You'll be mad on the third season, and by the fourth season, you'll just want to turn it off. And that's exactly what happened to me. I turned it off middle of the fourth season, have not gotten back to it. But I will say with absolute certainty, the first season of Prison Break is one of the best seasons of television that I've ever watched in my life.
Now that's what I do with Super Bowl 49. I watch it right up until Jermaine Kearse's catch. I see Marshawn get the ball, take it to the 1, and then I stop because it's over, right?
Yeah, it's very smart to save yourself that pain. I would do the same if I was a Seahawks fan.
You got to do what you got to do. What's your all-time favorite TV show?
My all-time favorite TV show, it's pretty close. I have to say it's a 3-way tie between Entourage, Suits, and The Sopranos. I would have to give the edge to Entourage. It's just
so good.
It would not hold up in today because half the things you just can't say on TV anymore. But it was just so good.
It is so good. How about an all-time favorite movie?
Ooh, this is a little bit cliche for me, but I'll go with the Ocean series and specifically Ocean's 13. I'm a huge like heist movie like thriller fan like that, and I'm not even that big of a George Clooney fan, but just the storyline just being the way it is so outrageously thrilling and daring, and just love everyone in that movie.
Is that the European one, like the Italian one?
No, that was the third one where they ripped off what's his name? Pacino's character.
Oh, okay, okay. Of course, of
Yeah.
course. How about an all-time favorite sports movie?
Ooh, Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore is definitely there for me. Again, it's a little bit of a cop out, but love me a good Adam Sandler movie. I'm a huge Adam Sandler fan. I see like every Adam Sandler movie, even that ungodly hustle movie he did that was Philadelphia 76ers based. Um, but yeah, I love Adam Sandler movies, and Happy Gilmore is my opinion one of the best sports movies ever.
So good. How about a favorite band or singer, musician, artist?
Red Hot Chili Peppers for me. Always been a fan there. Was actually when we did the Scott Fish Bowl in 2021, bands was the theme of that one, and I got placed into the Red Hot Chili Peppers division.
Perfect. I love it. What are you most grateful for at this time?
I mean, my family, friends, being able to spend so much time close to my family down here, and being in a place where I can, like Florida, where I'm able to do everything I love, and I don't have to travel far for it, and just the ease of life that I've had over the past couple of years, being able to do this for a living is it's not lost on me.
I love it. Can you name a few of the people that have had a huge impact on you during your journey in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I got three that immediately come to mind. The first one is the first friend I made in this industry when I was working at 14 Personnel, and that's my boy Jay Arsht. Not as much in the fantasy industry anymore, doesn't do any content or anything, still plays a ton of dynasty leagues, and he's really good at them. He beat me in the finals of this dynasty league that we started a couple of years ago, and he's gone back to back in this league, and came so close to beating him in the semifinals last year, and I got so pissed after he won that I wouldn't talk to him for a week. But we're both Eagles fans. We both really kind of talk every single day, and despite the fact that somehow we have not met yet, because he lives in LA and I live here, and despite the fact I've been trying to get him to the Fantasy Football Expo for 3 years and he just never wants to come. I will get him out there at some point, but he's become one of my closest friends, someone I talk to nearly every single day, go to advice about a ton of things. That's the first person. The second person, I have to shout this guy out because he's been huge for me in terms of my career in this industry, and has helped me more ways than I can count. That includes, talking to people, talking me up, and finally getting to meet him at the expo last year was hilarious. I got to follow him and Thor Nystrom around, but Derek Brown has become one of my best friends in this industry. It's been so awesome to watch his growth. Obviously, I first met him when he was at FTN, and then he transitioned over to Fantasy Pros. And it's just been so great to talk to him through that process, and just kind of get his view on the way that this industry works, and to see everything through the lens of his eyes. And I just respect everything about him. He's someone that I will talk to at least once a week if I can, just to ask him one thing or another. And he's just kind of been like a big brother to me, and something like that is very, very near and dear to my heart. And then the other two people that I want to give a shout out to are Dave Kluge and Steffi Smalls, because I came up with both of them, in late 2020, early 2021, as we were all getting into this industry. And obviously Dave and Steph got huge followings really quickly because they're both extremely sharp people. Especially being able to watch Dave, go to Football Guys and quickly get a full-time job there, doing a ton of different things, like helped me learn that I need to expand my skill set and be, as versatile as possible, and not just be able to write about fantasy football, but to talk about fantasy football, and, do some things on the back end with content and social media and, content planning. So, learning from Dave has always been good. He's still one of my close friends, that I get to talk to. And then obviously Steph has become one of my best friends in this industry. We do a golf podcast together. We talk about betting nearly every single day. She's one of the few people that is willing to listen to me when I go on a rant about, something or another, whether it's, a job in the industry or, something about our bets, or Scotty Scheffler not being able to hole 5-foot putt because he's just mentally challenged at holding 5-foot putts. But she's become one of the, few people that I can talk to about nearly anything in this industry. And I'm really just thankful to her and Dave, for being my friends, for the last 2.5, 3 years. And I'm just looking forward to watching their meteoric growth continue even more and more.
I love it. I love it. Great people. Every single one that you mentioned. It's an awesome list for sure. Now, you obviously have paved your path in this industry. Bright future ahead. What advice do you have for others that want to kind of follow those footsteps and get more involved in creating content in fantasy?
Well, the first thing I can say to anybody that wants to get into this industry is just start. Whether that's writing, whether that's recording something, it's starting a TikTok, starting a little Substack or a blog, like these things that are free and don't cost any ability, any dollar amount to upkeep and maintain. And, build a name for yourself. People will respect the fact that you went out there and created something on your own with no direction from others, other than your own willpower. Oh, excuse me, and want to create for yourself. And, if you want a job in this industry, people are going to look to people who have experience creating in this industry. And if you have, another, applicable talent like marketing or coding or video editing, use it. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there for places. Even if you don't think you're qualified, your experience will speak for itself. I came into this industry with no sports writing experience whatsoever, except that a third grade teacher told me that she thought I was a great writer when I was all of 8 years old. And that's what I carried with me to my first 3 jobs, because I had nothing else to, go to people with, except that, hey, my third grade teacher thought I was going to be a great writer. So I wrote a bunch of stuff, just on spec and just, out of the, thoughts in my head. Can you look this over? Can you tell me if this is any good? Can you tell me if, if it reads well, if the grammar's correct? And most of the times it wasn't, but these people fix things and they gave me notes. And I recommend reaching out to people and sending them their work and, asking if they can give you constructive criticism, because everybody needs constructive criticism. Even people that have been in this industry for 10 plus years need constructive criticism. And I've never not been willing to, receive some criticism, whether that's, on a video camera appearance, a short form video appearance or a long form video appearance, or my writing work, which I think has gotten progressively worse over the years because, it just does. But I do think that you can always learn. You can always go put in reps for yourself. And, honestly, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to go, introduce yourself to people in cold DMs and cold emails, stuff like that. I mean, some people will respond to you and other people won't, but that's okay, because there's a ton of people in this industry. You're going to get a lot of no's, but you'll get some yeses, and those yeses will be really, really good for you. And I think it's important that you feel comfortable with putting yourself out there, because that's the first step you have to take in an industry like this, where a lot of it is based on your ability to know people. And I don't think people talk about that enough. You have to be skilled, but you also have to be willing to put yourself out there and introduce yourself to people, because people aren't going to know you unless you put yourself out there.
Perfect advice. I love everything you just said. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to share before we close things out here on this episode?
I think I've bared my soul here. I really enjoyed coming on here, though. This has been an absolute blast to, come on this show. I've been wanting to for a really long while, and I'm really happy you asked me.
Hey, I'm thrilled to have you. It's been fun. Tell the listeners and viewers where to find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Swagman95, exactly as it's spelled. And then, on, at the game day, you can find pretty much 90% of my content there. The rest of it you can find over at Football Guys. you're looking for some, more fantasy based content there, and then also in the Discord there that we're helping to build. But yeah, over at the game day, and we'll see where we go from there.
There we go. Well, Sam Wagman, pleasure to have you on. Thrilled to have you here. It's been a ton of fun. Can't wait to see what's next for you in 2024, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.